Hey guys, Pete Hartnett from Tulip, product manager responsible for our AI efforts here at Tulip. Excited to announce the launch of the Tulip MCP server, and I want to share some details on that and then show you an example of how we can leverage this MCP server today to get value out of the product. So in short, an MCP server allows a language model to interact with other systems, right? So your ChatGPTs or your Claudes can now deeply connect to your systems of record. And the Tulip MCP, as the name implies, allows you to connect to Tulip. Importantly, this MCP has access to many different tools and capabilities, and I'll show you those in just a second. But I want to kind of frame this in the format of an example. So I've got some data here, and this is just a streaming list of different defects that are coming off the shop floor. Some basic metadata like the category, descriptions of those defects, the cost associated with these defects, and their status. And I could manually build analytics on top of this. I could even leverage AI to do that. I could go manually read these notes and try to summarize what the kind of key issues are, but I want to leverage the Tulip MCP to sort of bring those insights to the surface for me. So I've downloaded the Tulip MCP, and I'm actually running that locally, and I've connected that to my instance of Claude here. Claude is just a client to talk to these MCPs and interface with large language models. So I'm going to dump in an example prompt. I'm just asking it to summarize the defects that are in this table. Actually, I'll get rid of this. We can look at every row there. We're asking it, what are the common types of defects? For critical defects, what are some of the preventive actions that we could take so they don't happen in the future? We could do all sorts of filtering and sorting here if we wanted to. And we've selected which tools we want us to have access to. So in this case, we're just using read actions from tables, right? List tables, get the metadata about a table, list the records in a table, and then get the details about each individual record. So I'm going to start this prompt. Now, importantly, these language models get to make the evaluation of which tools they should actually use and in what order they should use them. So it's going to rely on its intelligence to decide that it needs to get the table, to get the metadata about that table. It's then going to list the records from this table. And now it's actually chosen to use one of the tools that are built into this chat client. And in this case, it's actually writing a JavaScript script to do this analysis, right? We hear about language models and their challenges in handling math accurately. So in this case, the language model actually understands its weakness, and it's relying on a programming language in itself to do this evaluation. So you can see it's pulling that table data, putting it into an array. Now, importantly, the Tulip MCP has a lot more capabilities than just fetching data from a table. Even outside of tables where we have read and write, we also have capabilities when it comes to machines, capabilities when it comes to managing the shop floor, like interacting with interfaces and stations and station groups. So interacting with users and user groups and app assignments and all sorts of different things that can all be, interacted with the Tulip MCP. Let's see how our analysis is doing here. You can see it's still pulling all of this data, and then you'll see it actually write a JavaScript script to do the evaluation on this data set. Like I said, I could have done something like applying a filter at the beginning, like I only want data from the last day. Really have a ton of flexibility, right? So this MCP is acting as that kind of interface layer between the API and the LLM, right? It's an interface that the LLM understands to understand the structure of the data that's going to be in that data set. So now that data set has been copied over, you can see it's actively writing that JavaScript script to do the evaluation, calculating those core relationships, and it's now generating my report for me. So it gives me key statistics, how many defects, what the total cost was, what the average cost was, what different categories these defects fell into, and then giving me some guidance on how I could start solving these problems, right? We're having issues with temperature control, and it calls out the specific examples that we're seeing and gives preventative actions on how I could solve this. Issues with suppliers, and what is the impact of those issues, and again, how we could solve those, along with a few other kind of root causes. Importantly, it calls out 68% of those critical defects stem from equipment or control issues. Now, like I said, now that the LLM has this data, we can ask it many other additional questions, right? Can you structure this information into an email for my quality manager? And that language model can take that content and transform it for me into something like an email. So, like I said, the Tulip MCP is now available today. We would love, you guys to play with this and get some value from it and let us know what you find. Good luck playing. Thank you.